Okay, I think that's
And
it.
Rocio, you said you could record to your locally?
Um, I haven't started it, but let me do that right now and see if it gives me that option.
I think you should be able to, but every 5 seconds, Zoom changes things. So
Yep, good to go. Thank you.
All right. Are we all, that was all for the tech specs, right?
I think so. Where's our little list? Yeah.
Beautiful. All right. We have about 5 minutes, I guess, stretch and get our
Hydrate.
yeah, drink of choice. I'm having some green tea,
Ooh, nice.
water.
Folks who are joining us will start in a couple minutes.
That's right. Yes, we will start in just a few minutes. Thank you, Diana. I'm gonna get our try to present this. You'd think after a couple years on Zoom, you'd be a pro.
I feel like I've gotten worse. I like peaked, maybe a year ago or year and a half ago, and then, it kind of went down.
There's always something new to learn on Zoom.
Yes.
That's true. That feels validating. Yeah, and they've updated a lot
Totally.
since the pandemic, I would say. All right, can everyone see this
We can
beautiful?
see like a slide and a half. Is there a way to like make it full screen or something? I don't know even what those words are.
Let's see. I think I did present mode.
It might be this thing. Oops, that was not a good circle. Yeah,
Did that work?
yeah. That's too big now. Yeah, that. Now, how do I delete my little thing?
There we go. Is that better?
Yes. And now how do I delete that little circle thing? I think it goes away after a while.
Oh, the drawing.
Yeah. I love that drawing so much. And I always forget how to delete it. Wait.
Hello, welcome everyone. I see a few more folks trickling in. For those who are expecting Vanessa's face tonight, I am facilitating in place of her. She had to be at another, actually late night evening project meeting. My name is Jem Marasigan. I'll reintroduce myself shortly, but yeah, I'll be the facilitator for tonight. I'm usually behind the scenes supporting Vanessa with note-taking and action item recording. We'll start in just a couple minutes. We have, yeah, it's 4:58, so feel free to stretch, get your hydration of choice, and then we'll get started shortly. This daylight savings is, yeah.
That's true. We haven't had a CSC meeting in a long time where even almost at the beginning, it's starting to get dark. I had to turn my light on at the beginning.
Yeah, me too. Same. I was like, I usually do this halfway through a meeting.
Yeah.
Hope
Yeah.
everyone's still remembering to I have to like force myself to get out in the middle of the day, or else I don't get any sunlight.
Yes.
Hi, welcome everyone. Good evening, good evening. See a lot more people joining. All right. And I think we're at 5 o'clock, so we can get started. Good evening. Welcome. For those who are expecting Vanessa's face, she will be sorely missed tonight as she has to be in another project meeting, but I'm happily taking her place. My name is Jem Marasigan. I was supporting Vanessa in the facilitation role, and I've led a few in the other CSCs, like Fresno Community Steering Committee. It's my pleasure to lead tonight or help facilitate tonight's call. I know we have a lot we want to cover, lots of rich discussion and updates for everyone here. And as a reminder, this is going to be our last meeting for the year. So really glad to see this great turnout. And I believe we can get started shortly. Or we can get started now. Awesome, Bianca. We see your note. We'll run through the housekeeping now, so that'll hopefully buy folks some time to get settled in. All right, so as usual, we're going to go over some logistics and Zoom instructions. I know this might be familiar for all of you, but it's always helpful to have a little bit of a refresher. All right, and so we can have simultaneous interpretation. These are some instructions for how to access the interpretation. As a reminder, you have to join either in English or Spanish language to hear the meeting, as simultaneous interpretation will be happening. So on your Zoom desktop, if you're joining by computer, you'll hover over to the globe interpretation icon, and after hitting that will open up a drop-down menu where you can select your language of choice, whether listening to it in English or Spanish. And if you are joining through a tablet or an iPhone or a phone, you'll look for these 3 dots that say more. Open that up, and then you'll find the language interpretation option, and that'll open the language selection of your choice. Again, select Spanish or English to hear the meeting. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to myself, my colleague Diana, and we can help you in getting you set up. I'm going to hand it over to Tanya, who will provide the instructions as well before we move on.
Thank you, Jane. Buenas tardes a todos, bienvenidos. Este es un recordatorio de que estamos proveyendo interpretación simultánea como siempre para estas reuniones y les vamos a dar las instrucciones nuevamente. Si ustedes ingresaron con una computadora van a ver el icono de un mundo en la parte de abajo de su pantalla. Por favor, seleccionen ese icono y seleccionen el canal de español. También los invitamos a silenciar el audio original para que solo escuchen la voz del intérprete y no escuchen 2 voces a la vez. Si ustedes ingresaron con una tableta o un teléfono móvil, sus opciones son un poco diferentes. Tienen que tocar su pantalla, van a buscar los 3 puntitos, van a donde diga más o more, seleccionen el canal de español donde diga interpretación de idioma o language interpretation. También nuevamente silenciar el audio original. Y por último, el botón que diga done, listo o finalizado para que ya nos puedan escuchar en español. Si necesitan ayuda o no pueden ingresar, por favor nos dejan saber. Thank you, Jen.
Awesome. Thank you, Tanya. I'm seeing a chat. We're not hearing interpretation, so let's, yeah, we can troubleshoot that first before we move forward. It's on our end. Are you hearing it? Mari, I see you nodding. Yeah, okay. Oh, I see a few
people.
folks.
Well, we probably have to talk so that they could tell if they're hearing it or not. So I'm just going to keep randomly talking so you could let us know. I think it's Linda and Bianca. Can you hear it now?
Okay, hold on, let me. All right, yeah, we'll keep talking. So I'll just keep going through our housekeeping, and then I'm gonna keep an eye on seeing if folks are hearing it or not. So as again, my name is Jeremiah Segan. I'll be the facilitator tonight, and I'm joined here by Diana, who you've already heard from. She's here to support with notes and tracking action items. We're also joined by Stephanie and Rocio from the Air District. And before we kick off the meeting, we want to just go over some housekeeping per usual to kick off the meeting. Just going to pause to see if folks are able to hear the interpretation, or if people are still unable to hear that.
So it
Okay.
seems like some people can, but Linda and Bianca, the ones who said they couldn't before, can you all hear the Spanish?
Any confirmation, Linda,
Yeah.
Bianca? Bianca, I know you have a group with you as well, so I want to make sure that's sorted
Yeah.
out. Can we get a thumbs up, or feel free to chat? Thumbs up, awesome.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Wonderful. All
Thanks
right.
for pausing, Jem.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, had to make sure everyone was able to hear the meeting. Awesome. So now that we have our interpretation set out, we're going to move on to some logistics and housekeeping. So as a reminder, before we get started, please keep your mic on mute, and make sure your Zoom name is displayed as the following. This helps us keep track of attendance, especially for those participating in the stipend program. For CSC members, please use this naming convention with the CSC or R in front if you're a resident as well, your first and last name. And all other participants, please use the naming convention in orange or right below the CSC members. So first and last dash your affiliation. And if you're public, you can put a P in front of your name. As a reminder, this is helpful for us to track attendance. And if you are participating in the stipend program, it is required you participate for 75 minutes. At least 75 minutes to qualify for the stipend for this month. And just a few more reminders for being on Zoom. Again, stay on mute unless you're speaking or planning to speak. And if you're joining by phone, you can use *6 to toggle those options. Please raise your hand or drop a comment in the chat to ask any questions or comments, or use *9 if you're joining by phone. And then as a reminder, residents should stay for at least 75% of the meeting, correcting that, 75%, which is 90 minutes of our 2-hour meeting to qualify for the program. And so today we have on our agenda, as usual, starting off with action items tracker. This is to help ensure accountability for the actions we're tracking throughout these meetings, and to keep the CSC up to date with the progress of these actions. After that, we're going to spend the bulk of the conversation doing an end-of-year SERP update. It'll be a review of the implementation and planning for 2024. And a lot of this has been informed by the CSC members and what they requested to hear about. So really exciting to cover that today. And then we'll proceed with standing updates. Yes, Steph.
Hi, Jem. Good evening, everyone. This is Stephanie. I'm just noting, I actually think we did have an addition to this agenda, which will be the methane task force providing their updates as well. So just noting that that's not reflected in this agenda, but they're here tonight and really excited to present their final inspection report to the community. I think, and Rocio can post in the chat the agenda as well, just so we can have updated time marks for when we plan to have all these items.
Awesome. Thanks, Steph, for that correction. And will that be happening during the SERP update?
So we're going to go ahead and kick it off first at 5:20, and then we'll move on to that SERP update presentation as well.
Beautiful. So correction, we will start with the methane task force update, and then the bulk of the conversation will be the end of year SERP implementation update. Thank you, Seth.
Thank you.
Following up with the standing updates, and then we'll wrap it up and talk about next steps and agenda setting. All right. As we pivot, I guess, moving on to our first agenda item, to review the action items tracker, I will pass it off to Rocio to provide those updates. And if you have any clarifying questions or comments, please feel free to drop them in the chat. We'll be monitoring them as well.
Thank you, Jem. Good evening, everyone. Let me go ahead and start sharing my screen to begin with the action items. Oh. And then, Jem, if you don't mind, just stop sharing screen so I can continue to share mine. Thank you. Okay, can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Awesome. Thank you. So today we don't have any action items in progress, so we can continue to the completed action items. So beginning with the first one, Valley Can was actually at the last CSC meeting where they announced to the CSC and invited them to attend the Tune In Tune Up event at KC Fairgrounds that took place on October 28th. And so if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to Valley Can. The phone number is right here. And then moving on to the next action item. So in the last CSC meeting, there was a question on information that is needed for the passenger vehicle replacement program. And so if you go ahead and click on this link right here, it'll give you more information about what documents are needed. And you can also feel free to reach out to our grants department or Valley Can. Both of their numbers are right here as well. Or if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to them or us. You can also send us an email at excuse me, AB617@valyair.org if you would like us to send you a paper application through the mail. So going on to the next section of the action items for the ongoing. So the Air District invited CSC members to feel free to reach out to us if you guys would like to receive a hard copy of the draft annual report. We're more than happy to send those. And then for the next action item, was to look into suggested locations for the repair and replacement measures. And this is something that the CSC gave a lot of great suggestions in the last meeting. So we did take note of that, and Valley Can is actually looking into these suggestions. And so the Air District will continue to work with the CSC and Valley Can to coordinate outreach workshops. Moving on to the comment noted action items. So at the last CSC meeting, we did get some feedback on the draft annual report. It was to follow up with more information about violations and related fines, add more context about the timing for upcoming projects, and adding more information about the air monitoring reports and the spikes. So the Air District is incorporating this feedback and any other feedback that we received from the CSC into the draft annual report, and we'll report back to the CSC with the final version once that is complete. I think I skipped the on. Nope, so that would be the end of the action items. Is there any questions?
I see
Yes,
that
Linda.
oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, Linda.
I had a question. I have asked more than a few times at every meeting to have our bike paths that, remember when we had the in-person meeting and everyone kind of wrote down different ideas, and I don't feel like it's been sent out, or maybe I didn't get it. Do you know what's going on with that project? So I had
Linda,
that question, and then another question was on the passenger replacement vehicles. I thought that the Air District was going to CARB to see about getting it up to $20,000. Is that something that we're still waiting on? Should we advise people to wait? Do we have an update on that? And that was it. Thank you.
Thanks, Linda, for both of those questions. And this is Stephanie from the Valley Air District. To your first question about bike paths, we will have a small update tonight. And I just want to check, are you asking about to see the feedback that we all received, or to kind of see next steps about the measure?
Well, both. And I was just hoping that we could kind of view what the community had come up with.
Oh, yeah.
And
for
I
sure.
still haven't seen anything. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to attend that meeting. So I've just been curious for months what
my
the
gosh.
community had said. So
Yeah.
I would like
of
to know
course.
about that.
Yeah.
And then also the RFP on the sidewalks, if we've gotten that. And I think there was 2 RFPs out, and I didn't see those on the agenda. So sorry to bring it up a little late, but
No, that's
just
totally
curious about
great.
those.
Those are great questions, and I'm going to dig into those into the presentation, but I'll just kind of provide a quick update since we're talking about them. We can definitely share in the chat so after the in-person meeting, we compiled all of the notes that we got, and they're posted on our website. And so we're happy to share that kind of in the chat right now, so that you can kind of view those. But to your point, just about kind of next steps, I know that we are working with the city, and I know I see Steve and then also Mike are here as well. And so really soon here, we're planning on scheduling a meeting to kind of continue the conversation about bike path and then sidewalk improvements as well. For those measures, I know that we provided an update that the city is entering into an RFP for their design work for their paving projects. For the next steps for this bike path project, we'll kind of work with the city to see what projects that we can work with them on. We don't need an RFP process for that measure. And then related to the passenger vehicle replacement, I think as folks might remember, the Shafter community, I think, was very supportive and prioritized that increased incentive amount of $20,000. So that's something that's already that is already kind of folded into the community emissions reduction program, or our CERP. What we need right now, and kind of the last step in the last kind of like stretch here, is we are working with Valley Can, who they came, I believe, the last meeting to talk to us, just to kind of start thinking about implementation. We're working with them to figure out details of the administration of the program. So in terms of just folks applying for the program, we do need a little bit of kind of lead time to prep the program to be available for this increased incentive amount and for the program to open in the AB617 communities, but we don't need any next steps for to increase that amount, because it is written into the CERP for that amount.
Okay, and I also sent a link to you guys too. I don't want to forget about our local dealership here, Richland. They have 2 folks that are bilingual and also very well versed on the paperwork that needs to be done. So I wanted to make sure that you guys had got it, because I didn't get an email back. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Linda. We shared that information with Valley Can, and we'll follow up with them. I think it's a great idea to coordinate with folks that have that experience. And so we'll work with Valley Can and also the CSC as we're starting to think about those passenger vehicle replacement community workshops. I think that's a great suggestion. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you, Steph, for answering that. And then I did go ahead and just drop in the chat the link to the notes from the in-person meeting that took place in May. And I'm happy to take any more questions on the action items. I don't see any raised hands, so I'll pass it back to Jen.
Thank you, Rocio, Stephanie, and Linda, for the great questions. Keep them coming. If something comes up as we proceed with the meeting, feel free to just drop them in the chat and we can address them as they come. All right, so now we'll transition onto the oil and gas enforcement inspection report. I believe we'll be hearing from Elizabeth Rodriguez from CARB to provide the update on that.
Yes.
Yeah,
Thank you, Jen. Oh, sorry, Stephanie.
Oh, Ellie, I was just hoping to maybe set you up and provide a little bit of context for this item as well. I know you're going to talk about it, but I think maybe just as a quick reminder to folks, and I think folks might recognize a lot of people that are regularly on this call. I just want to acknowledge that there are a handful of folks that might be new faces, because we do have our methane task force here with us. And as a reminder to folks, our methane task force, it's a joint effort. It's led by the California Air Resources Board, which Ellie is here from CARB. It's also with CalGEM and then the district. They've come to several of our meetings this year to provide updates about these inspections that they're doing in the Shafter community. And Ellie is here to provide her final, the methane task force final updates and the inspection report. So just wanted to provide that quick context. And I know, Ellie, you're going to chat about it. So I'll pass to you now.
Thank you, Stephanie. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
So hello, everyone. Good evening. Buenas tardes. My name is Ellie Rodriguez. I am an air pollution specialist with the California Air Resource Board, as Stephanie mentioned. It's a pleasure to be here this evening. I will be giving the Methane Task Force Shafter Wasco inspection summary. Before we begin, I did want to briefly go over a few items. I will be kind of talking at a slower pace just to give our wonderful interpreters the opportunity to translate the information for those members who are Spanish speaking. In addition, I would like to ask that we hold any questions till the end of the presentation. And with that being said, let's get started. The Methane Task Force is a joint effort led by the California Air Resource Board, the agency that I am a part of, and the California Department of Conservation's Geologic Energy Management Division, or CalGEM. CARB and CalGEM were directed by Governor Newsom to identify and respond to methane leaks from oil infrastructures near communities like Shafter, as well as address the outsized impact methane has on climate change. In recent months, the Methane Task Force has partnered with the San Joaquin Valley Air Pollution Control District to conduct joint inspections of oil and gas wells in Kern County. Among those inspections were the Arvin and Lamont inspections that occurred in May, and most recently, the Shafter Wasco inspections that occurred in September. I would like to note that the joint inspection efforts were in addition to the regular inspections that are performed by each agency. While the inspections have been a joint effort between the three agencies, each agency has specific authority to address leaks from oil and gas wells. These authorities were the basis for all enforcement action taken during these inspections. For example, CARB has the authority to ensure compliance with CARB's oil and gas methane regulation, or COGR. COGR requires that oil and gas operators that are not subject to local rules add emission controls and replace any high-emitting equipment. COGR also requires that operators inspect their equipment for leaks and repair those leaks accordingly. On the other hand, CalGEM has broad authority over oil and gas operations to ensure wells and facilities are kept in a leak-free environment, and that they are following safety and environmental requirements. Finally, the Air District has primary authority for stationary sources of air pollution, including oil and gas operations. This includes the requirements to obtain district permits. These permits can be for vapor release and recovery equipment, and they have the authority via a memorandum of agreement to enforce COGR on CARB's behalf. Now that we went over a little bit about the Methane Task Force and the authorities of each agency, let's dive a little bit deeper into the Shafter inspection efforts. The Methane Task Force coordinated with the San Joaquin Valley APCD to support joint oil and gas inspections that were informed by the engagement with the Shafter Community Steering Committee. I would like to take a moment to thank the Shafter CSC members for being such active participants and engaging with us throughout the process. The selection of Shafter represented an opportunity to engage with an Assembly Bill 617 community that identified oil wells as a top air quality priority. On June 12, 2023, the Methane Task Force engaged with the Shafter CSC to provide an overview of efforts aimed at addressing leaks from oil and gas wells and to receive feedback on a proposed inspection plan. During this meeting, the CXC expressed concerns about potential safety risks from leaking wells and a desire to be informed about possible co-pollutants found in gas leaks. Additionally, the CSC requested that the inspection plan include wells outside of the Shafter boundary. On August 14th, the Methane Task Force again met with the Shafter CSC and provided an overview of the sampling and notification plan that had been developed in response to the concerns voiced during that June 12th meeting. The final inspection plan was also presented, and with the community's input, 73 wells located within 3,200 feet of the Shafter community boundary and critical wells within a 7-mile radius of Shafter were selected for this inspection effort. From September 12th Through September 14th, 2023, staff from CARB, CalGEM, and the Air District inspected a total of 73 wells within the Shafter-Wasco community. During the inspection period, 18 of the 73 wells were found to be leaking. Notably, 3 of the 18 wells had leaks exceeding a concentration of 50,000 parts per million. It is important to note that these leaks dissipated to background levels, rendering them undetectable within 3 inches of the source. Immediate action was taken to promptly repair all 3 wells. These wells were also repaired and re-inspected within 2 days to ensure safety and compliance. In addition, none of the wells inspected presented methane concentrations detectable above background levels beyond 3 feet from the well. Therefore, no samples were collected for analysis. During this inspection effort, the Methane Task Force will continue to evaluate this plan and all efforts in its response to community concerns. As of September 15, 2023, all leaks subject to CARB's oil and gas regulation have been successfully repaired and re-inspected. And as of November 6, 2023, all leaks subject to CalGEM's regulations have also been successfully repaired and re-inspected. As I mentioned before, the community expressed the desire to understand what co-pollutants were leaking from wells and to be notified of potential safety risks associated with those leaking wells. In response to those concerns, the Methane Task Force developed a comprehensive plan for sampling and analysis and for the notification of safety risks. Prior to the inspection efforts taking place, the Methane Task Force coordinated with local first responders as part of the inspection planning process to determine when emergency personnel were to be notified about leaking oil wells. It was determined that the local fire department and California's Governor's Office of Emergency Services would be notified if methane was detected above 5,000 ppm and at a distance of 3 or more feet from the leak. And the leak could not be fixed before Methane Task Force inspectors left the site. The Methane Task Force decided it would defer to local emergency personnel on whether there are any safety risks associated with the aforementioned leaks and what follow-up action would be needed, including notification to the local Shafter community. During the inspection effort, the local first responders were not contacted since none of the leaks observed met the threshold established. Moving forward, the Methane Task Force will defer to local first responders for when they would like to be contacted during inspections. The sampling and analysis plan that was developed was meant to provide a point source gas speciation where methane was detectable above background levels at 3 or more feet from the leak source. The plan was as follows. For wells where methane is detectable above background levels, 3 feet or more from the well, a first canister sample would be collected as closely and as safely as possible to that leak source. And a second canister sample would be collected at the point at which methane dissipates to the background. The gas sample collected at the leak source provides the highest concentration of potential co-pollutants. This sample may be representative of ambient air that the community may experience. Samples collected would then be analyzed using the United States Environmental Protection Agency's Method Toxic Organics Analysis, or TO15, which would determine whether elevated levels of compounds were detected at levels that exceeded acute reference levels at the point where the sample was collected. I would like to emphasize that the plan does not provide cancer risk analysis, chronic REL, or modeling to investigate short or long-term health effects attributable to the leaking wells. During this inspection effort, none of the leaks discovered met the threshold established, so no sampling analysis was conducted. The Methane Task Force is continuing to evaluate that sampling plan to ensure it is responsive, and we welcome any feedback on how to further develop this plan. During this inspection effort, the Methane Task Force was also committed to providing timely and transparent inspection results. As a result of this, the daily inspection data, such as leak rates, were posted within 24 hours on CARB's oil and gas enforcement page. The following enforcement actions were taken as a result of these inspections. The Air District issued a notice of violation for the 3 leaks that exceeded 50,000 ppm concentrations of methane. Additionally, CalGEM issued 18 notices of violation for leaks discovered. If you would like more information regarding this inspection effort, as of today, a final inspection report has been posted in English and in Spanish on CARB's webpage. I am going to drop a link into the chat that will take you directly to that page. If I can find my way around. I will drop it as soon as I stop sharing my screen because I can't find the chat from here. But thank you.
And somebody posted the link, so.
Oh, awesome. Thank you. That concludes our inspection summary for today. I would like to open the floor to any questions. Please feel free to type them into the chat or unmute yourself. We are fortunate to have representatives from each agency here that I know are going to be very happy to answer your questions. Thank you.
Thank you for that presentation, Ellie. Any questions or comments? We have some time for that.
This is Stephanie. I'm just noting that I see Bianca's question about getting hard copies of the inspection report. We'd be happy to send them to you. Bianca, if you could just let us know how many and whether or not you want them in English or Spanish. Feel free to put it in the chat, or you can also just call Rocio tomorrow or later this week or email her, and she'd be happy to send them out for you.
Awesome. Thank you, Steph. All right. I don't see any other questions in the chat or any raised hands. So I guess at this time, we can transition to the end of the year SERP implementation review and planning discussion. I can't believe I'm saying end of the year because I don't know where 2023 went. But as a reminder, the goal of this agenda item is, one, to celebrate the progress that the CSC has collectively achieved this past year, as well as to get a head start on identifying measures that the community would like to prioritize for the upcoming year. So these measures are beneficial to the community as they have the potential to prevent emissions and reduce emissions in your community, as well as filter pollutants that are already present. So today we'll be hearing from the Air District, who will be providing updates on air filtration, urban greening, road paving, and sidewalk installation. And these are, as a reminder, these are measures that the CSC has, they've expressed that they want to hear more about. And so that's how the Air District prioritizes these items. And then after that, we'll open up the floor to any questions and discussion about the topics, and then would love your input on how we should prioritize for the next year. And of course, we encourage you to share your inputs, thoughts, concerns. That's all going to inform what we'll do moving forward. And my team and I here will we'll take notes of all your input here. So we want to hear from as many people as possible. As a reminder, this is our last meeting for the year. So take advantage of it. And at this time, I'll hand it off to Stephanie to kick us off. Steph, would you like questions during or after your presentation?
I will take them at certain points. I'll have chunks of slides and then pause at after those chunks and take questions.
Perfect. Take it away.
Thank you so much, Jem. And I wanted to thank everyone for being here. Like Jem said, I think it's just wild to think that we've gotten to the end of the year again. I also wanted to thank our partners at CalGEM and CARB for being here to present the final inspection report. I know that maybe some folks haven't had the opportunity to fully look through the report, and that we'll be sending some hard copy, like printed copies, out to folks. So, all the staff that's on this call is open to taking questions anytime. So as you might have questions as you're reviewing the report after this meeting, please don't hesitate to reach out to any of us. But thank you all so much for being here this evening to give that inspection report to our Shafter community. Just in putting together this presentation for you all tonight, I just want to appreciate all the folks that attended the agenda setting meeting. We definitely got some really great feedback about just things that folks want to see, including hearing updates, detailed updates on our urban greening and vegetative barrier proposals or measures that we're really excited to bring to you all tonight. And then also just, I think just feedback on folks really wanting to see how we're doing high level in implementation. You know, we've all been working together for several years now on the implementation of AB617 to implement these clean air strategies, to see improved public health, to see reduced emissions in the community. And at the agenda setting, I think just folks reflected that it would be nice to see how we're doing really big picture on the implementation of AB617. So that's what we'll be planning on doing an update on tonight. I know that as we're going through the presentation, I'm happy to answer as many questions as you all have, but I think this meeting also is a great opportunity that if we want to deep dive into any of these measures, we can kind of plan to pin those and prioritize those as we're thinking about our meetings for the upcoming year. So with that, I am going to go ahead and share my screen. And I will kick us off on this presentation. So again, this is our AB617 implementation. This is our 2023 year-end review. So this slide is just going to represent a really high-level look at our Community Emissions Reduction Program, or our CERP. I think as most folks on this call know, in your CERP, there is over $38 million of funding allocated to different clean air strategies within the community, which we'll be going through many of them tonight. And really the goal of these measures is to reduce emissions in our community. And in your CERP, we're looking to reduce 265 tons of PM 2.5 and 1,718 tons of NOx to improve public health in the Shafter community. As a reminder, there are 51 measures that we have in the CERP. There are 26 that are related to incentives, 8 related to enforcement and permitting, 9 related to outreach, and 8 related to land use and partnership. That all of these measures are underway. We have several measures that are actually completed tonight that I'll highlight. And just generally, this presentation is going to be broken up into kind of 3 big categories of our CERP measures. The first that I'll go over, and I'll go over a few slides and pause at the end, is the measures that are more geared towards residents. And so just as a reminder to folks, some of those include, for example, our residential lawn and garden program. So that's exchanging lawn and garden equipment. We did a mower exchange event in the Shafter community that was really successful. And so we are very close to the pot of funding that we have allocated. We have about $18,000 remaining in that pot of funds. Our dial-a-ride program, which I'm excited to share updates on, we've actually finalized the contract with that, and so that measure is completed as well. Some of these other ones, for example, are tune in, tune up, and so that's our passenger vehicle repair measure, as well as our passenger vehicle replace measure. You'll see that these still have their funds in them because we just last meeting started to discuss with you all how we're going to implement the program. And like I shared earlier in the meeting, and I will in a little bit more detail in these later slides, those are programs that we're excited to kick off with you all. And then there are a couple of measures that we have open that you all have been such great advocates for and sharing information in the community, like our fireplace change-out program and also our air purifier program. So I'll get into a little more detail of a few of these measures. So for our residential lawn and garden program, we do have in the CERP allocated $100,000. So far, we've spent a good amount of that funding. We spent about $81,000, which is 195 units that are in the community, which is definitely a really big impact. Again, these are really local emissions that are impacting families. It's lawnmowers that are being used, right in your homes. And so we're really glad to see almost 200 units were placed in the community. Currently, we have funds for about 40 more units. And as most folks might remember, back in November of 2021, we did hold an event to exchange over 100 mowers in the community. And it was a really great opportunity to be able to, one, allow folks to not have to go out of their way to, get rid of their old unit, which is a part of the program. It was almost a one-stop shop so that folks could get rid of their old unit and pick up a new one, all in the same place. So that was a really exciting event we had. And so next steps that we wanted to discuss with you all is in the last few weeks, I have heard some interest in wanting to bring back this measure and potentially discuss adding funds to be able to hold another in-person exchange event, potentially in 2024. And so that's something that we can plan to bring back. I know that we did talk about it recently, and there were some folks that were interested and there were some folks that weren't. Given the case that we have had a few CSC members reach back out to us about potentially wanting to discuss holding an in-person event, that's something that we're open to discussing with you all and would love to hear feedback from the group if that's something, if an in-person mower exchange event, another one in the community, is of interest. If that's the case, please feel free to let us know. And then also I'll talk about our residential air filtration program, which is the program to give away free air purifiers in the community. The Shafter community has been such has been literally in this committee itself, for being a relatively small community compared to our other AB617 programs. This community has done such a fabulous job of spreading outreach in the community, sharing this information with your friends, your neighbors, your family. We've had 640 units given out throughout the community, which is about $127,000. Like I said, I know that I've heard definitely myself of all the great outreach that community members are doing, but we still do have lots of funds for the measure as well. So we will continue to do outreach on this measure. Including, this is something that we've kicked off in our Fresno and Stockton communities, is to potentially hold events in the community where we bring the filters, have folks sign up there, and then distribute it out in the community. So they could see the unit, they can fill out their application with someone to help them, and we can distribute it there. They don't need to wait for it to come in the mail, and we can be there to actually physically help them with the application if it's the case, that. I know some folks are maybe wary, they don't know if it's a real program, if they're going to get a device. In our other communities like Fresno and Shafter, Fresno and Stockton, we've been doing this and it's been working really well, and we've been able to distribute quite a few units. If folks know of any really big events that are happening in the community, for example, like a food distribution event or something related to that we can maybe coordinate and collaborate with that organization to also bring air purifiers, please feel free to let us know about those measures. About those events. I'll pause here. I know I just shared a lot of information about these two measures. Does anyone have any feedback or any questions? Go ahead, Linda.
I would really love to see in-person events if we could do it. I am a little disappointed from the other slide that we had so much funding in residential air filtration and we don't have as many people taking advantage of it, because those are great filters. So I'm kind of wondering where the hiccup is. So if we could do something in person, like we did the lawnmowers, that seemed to be a very successful program. I know we've kind of gone back and forth on that. I personally would really love to see some funds or at least another in person, because it was such a successful program. When we looked at your diagram that had all of the measures, that one used up all the funds. And that's great, because that shows that people really want it. So I would really like to have that. This dial-a-ride thing, I don't really know what that is, but that seemed to be used all up. So that was good. And then the other thing was the wood burning devices. I know we had an in-person event.
Yeah.
And I'm just kind of wondering what happened, like where the hiccups are on some of these. But with the air filtration systems, like we have, I think one or two food giveaways. I'm happy to try and get the information to you. Or just any other events. Maybe, I don't think we have any school fairs coming up, but I'm more than happy to get that, because I just really hope that residents would take advantage of that. It's so good, especially during harvest, which is what we just came out of. So I'll send you as much information as I can, but I would really love to see more in person. While we're kind of on that topic, how much longer does Shafter have these funds available before they're gone? Like, are we coming up on the mark yet? Because if that's the case, I kind of want to be aggressive about getting this stuff out into the community before we lose it for Shafter.
Yeah, that's a great question. I heard a couple of things that I'll maybe just reiterate and just see if I've collected that feedback correctly. I'm hearing support for or your interest in supporting another lawn and garden event, just because it is a measure that's close to almost being fully funded. Also, I'll talk about dial-a-ride and I realize that's something that maybe folks don't have as much information on, like the actual implementation of the program. So I'll give more information about the dial-a-ride program as well. The fireplace change-out program, we did hold an in-person show and tell event, and we did have some interest after that and folks submitting applications. But I do think, Linda, that I would assume that maybe folks, as summer rolled around, maybe folks forgot about their fireplaces or it wasn't top of mind. And so as this winter wood burning season is kicking off, we are re-upping the outreach that we're doing for the program and hoping to get the word out again for this measure. But I totally agree. I do think some of this maybe is also timeliness of when folks might be thinking about taking advantage of these programs. And so I know our outreach team is working hard to get the word out about this program again. And then also for residential air filtration, please, again, if you know of any events that are happening in the community, please feel free to share that with us and we'll look into whether or not it's possible for us to coordinate and also give out free air purifiers at these events as well. And then just in terms of your question about kind of funding deadlines, I know that we've talked generally high level about the program and that there are liquidation deadlines. We are spending funds and generally with these implementation funds, there are some deadlines, but I don't think we've gotten to the point where it's a red flag of us not being able to spend the money or like losing the money. And so I do agree with you. I think there is some urgency of, of course, wanting to get these resources out to community members, especially like you're saying, like, if, as harvest season passed, we want to make sure that folks are getting purifiers into their homes. And so I know that CARB is working hard kind of as our year one communities, which Shafter is a year one community, on kind of giving direction of what happens after the 5th year. But overall, we're still committed to working with you all to spend these funds in the community. And I don't think it's gotten to the point where, we're not going to, we'll lose the funds and not being able to spend them in the community.
Okay, appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks, Linda, for your questions. I'll keep going because actually we have a handful of other measures that I want to go over, including our dial-a-ride program. I'm going to, in the next slide, show some high-level information, but essentially this is a really cool service put on by the city of Shafter, if you're not familiar with it, where you can basically dial a ride, essentially is the concept. You call and you get a ride, there's a rate for it. They also have fixed rates for certain areas within the Shafter community. And so we actually, for this program, finalized a contract with the city of Shafter, and they're looking to purchase 4 vehicles to be able to support this program before the end of this year. We also have our car share program, and I think we shared an update with the CSC that we were opening what's called a request for proposal, or an RFP, to seek an organization to essentially implement this car share program in the Shafter community. We did have someone submit an application and our district team is reviewing that application. And once it's reviewed, we'll work on contracting with that applicant so we can move forward with the measure. And then also this was an update that I provided a little bit earlier, but just generally with our passenger vehicle repair and replacement measures, we are working with Valley Can, who's our kind of like local on the ground implementer of these 2 measures, on the details of how they'll actually logistically kind of implement the program. And we do hope to open it kind of in the coming weeks here. And kind of as a next step, we will, of course, coordinate with Valley Can and then also CSC members to kind of think about hosting a tune-in, tune-up event in the community, as well as those outreach workshops that we were talking about. With that, I'm gonna review one more slide, and I'm happy to take any more questions about the rest of these measures I discussed. So this is actually a flyer for from the city of Shafter about their dial-a-ride services. If folks want a more in-depth presentation about any of these services, like the car share program, like the dial-a-ride program, we're happy to share more information and have the city come talk about these awesome programs. But generally, again, that measure that I just shared that we worked with the city to finalize, it would be, they have rates for just kind of like if you were to call and have this dial-a-ride come to your door to provide you transportation within the city of Shafter limits. And there's also some fixed routes that they provide as well for this program. I'll stop here. Does anyone have any questions about these CERT measures that are more related to that residents can take advantage of? not seeing any, but Jem, Diana, if you see anything else, let me know. I'm going to move us on forward to some of our measures that are more related to kind of overall Oh,
No questions, just a request to have copies for the dial-a-ride flyer.
sure. Can definitely do that. We will just set, any materials that get requested at this meeting, we will just share them all together and send it off in the mail tomorrow. Thanks, Bianca. Sure. I'm getting a request from Bianca to go back and take a picture of, get a screenshot of this. And Bianca, we can mail this to you. I can also drop a link into the chat before the end of the meeting just about where these live on the City of Shafter's website. Thanks, Bianca. All right, so I'm going to move us forward to our measures that are more related to communities and schools. So we do have a good amount of progress on this slide as well. And I think there's two measures in particular that are high interest and high priority to folks that I have additional information on, and we'll dig into kind of later in the presentation, but that's our urban greening and vegetative barriers measures. So I won't dig into it too much now, but we'll provide a bigger update kind of later in the slides. But we do have some progress with our EV charging infrastructure measure, some level 2 chargers that are out in the community. There is progress with our paving projects as well, with the City of Shafter and then also Kern County, as well as electric school buses. Some of the measures that we are still working on moving forward are EV mechanic training program. We're still looking for concepts of how we can support an EV mechanic training or kind of support the existing efforts that are going on through high schools or community colleges, as well as our commercial lawn and garden program. So in this next slide, I'll just kind of high level go over I know we've talked about this in a handful of our previous presentations, in terms of road paving, sidewalk installation, and our bike path infrastructure, or our bike path measure. Our last update is that we finalized the contract with the City of Shafter, and they're moving forward on their project on State Route 43, and moving forward kind of with the design part of that project, which is something that needs to happen before they can actually start construction. And so that project is moving forward with the City of Shafter. The other piece of the projects that CSC members supported was a project in La Colonia. And so we're happy to report that we did finalize that the contract with Kern County to construct sidewalks, curbs, and gutters in La Colonia. And so Kern County, I know they have a lot of projects lined up, but they are looking in the next year to start the design phase also for their project as well, similar to what the City of Shafter is doing. As a next step for this measure, I know Linda asked, and I know folks are eager to kind of talk bike paths. And so we are planning on meeting with the City of Shafter to discuss bike path and pedestrian path improvements with this remaining. So far, we have, as you can see in the slide, we've used a little over 2 million. And so we have 1.275 million remaining in this measure for additional bike lanes or sidewalk improvements in the community.
Steph, I see a question about the EV chargers on the chat. Where are the EV chargers and can anyone use them?
That's a great question. I can follow up with my team. I don't know the exact locations of the chargers in the community, but my team would definitely know that. I'm wondering, Jem and Diana, if we can note that as an action item, and we'll follow up with the exact locations. But yes, as a part of this program, they would need to be publicly accessed. And so they would be chargers that the community can use.
Got it.
Thank you. And I'm seeing a note from Bianca to slow down, which is I am a fast talker, so I apologize. And please feel free to stop me at any time in this presentation to remind me to slow down.
Thanks, Steph. And I see we have a hand from Michelle.
Yes, you said you were meeting with the City of Shafter. That was for the bike paths and the sidewalks. Was that correct?
Yes.
And is that going to be a Zoom or an in-person?
we've just been overall, when we meet with the city of Shafter, they've generally been Zoom calls. And these are just kind of initial calls for, I think, for us to talk with the city of Shafter just about kind of program eligibility, what things cover for the program. But we definitely kind of, as we work with the city of Shafter, we'll bring the CSC updates on those measures.
Okay, that'd be great, because otherwise, I mean, I know this, it's real intense, all the stuff you have to do. But if when you get further down, if there's a chance we could maybe be a part of the Zoom or something if we wanted, that would be lovely.
Yes, definitely, Michelle. We want that too.
Thank you.
Jem and Diana, are there any other questions before I move us forward?
Not seeing any more, and I don't see any other hands. I think you're all set. Thank you.
Thank you. And so I'm going to go ahead and move us forward to two measures that I know that I get constant questions about, because I know that they are really high priority to the CSC. And so I'm really happy to report that for a while, we had both of these RFPs open and we're waiting for applicants to apply. I think, as folks might remember, we did have to open the RFP a second time because the first time it was open, we actually didn't have anyone apply into the program. Overall, it is, I think, a challenging program. You have to have, of course, background to understand, planting trees and have to be responsible for maintaining them. So there are certainly challenges with being kind of an implementer for this program. But we are happy to report we've had an application for both measures. So what you see here kind of in terms of progress is we have reviewed the applications for both requests for proposals for urban greening and vegetative barriers measures. So for our urban greening measure, in the next couple of slides, I'll present an update to you, but we do plan to work with to contract with the city of Shafter, who's the applicant for that measure, so that they can begin planting trees in the community. And similarly, for our vegetative barriers measure, after this update to the CSE, we do plan to work with Wonderful, which is the company that submitted the proposal for vegetative barriers, so they can begin planting barriers in the community. So in these next couple slides, I'm going to actually, I'll review them all together. That way you all can have the information about each proposal. I'll review each measure separate and then stop for questions. And I know that we also have both organizations here and they're happy to kind of talk about the projects and the work that they will be doing to implement them. So I'm going to start us off with our urban greening measure. As an overview, the applicant is the city of Shafter, and they are looking to potentially partner with Tree Foundation of Kern, which is a nonprofit in Kern County. Overall, the funding that's allocated for it is $50,000, and then this would look to cover approximately 2 acres. For this proposal, they're planning on planting 50 fully developed trees. And I'm going to read off these locations, but they're actually mapped out so you can see them visually. But the 6 locations they're planning to plant in, that they do have the ability to plant in, because of course, for these proposals, all of the trees that are planted they have to have some either own the land or some partnership or connection with the people that own the land, and then also need to maintain them for a long time so we can make sure these trees that after they're planted will stay alive in the community. And so the 6 locations that they're planning on planting in are Veterans Park, Mantle Park, City Hall, Lerdo Highway, from Cherry Avenue to Zerker Road, the Shafter Library and Learning Center, and then also the Shafter Animal Control Facility, which is right over by La Colonia. So those are the 6 locations. There are within kind of, something that we look into for these proposals is just making sure that they are supporting kind of sensitive populations. So there's a handful of schools like Grow Academy and Richland Junior High that these are planted near. And also just kind of very, I think as folks might see by the list, just very kind of community-centered areas. And so we're really excited for these locations. And here's a map of the proposed locations. So we have Lerdo Highway streetscape here, along here, Lerdo Highway. And then we also have the Learning Center, City Hall, Mantle Park, Veterans Park, and then also the animal control facility.
Thanks, Steph. Really quick, I see a hand from Linda. Was it a question or comment? Go ahead, Linda.
Oh, I can wait till she's done. Sorry.
Okay.
And I actually, thanks, Linda. We'll definitely get to you. I actually wanted to take a moment. I know that we have Mike with the city of Shafter here. And I just wanted to pass over to Mike just to speak about the project. I know that the city is really excited and is definitely looking to make improvements and plant trees in the community. So I'll pass over to Mike.
Good evening. Thank you, Stephanie. Michael James, Director of Public Works for the city. I actually prepared the application on behalf of the city. A couple of months ago, the City Council adopted a resolution authorizing the city to participate in the program. The reason for selecting these particular sites, I should point out that we projected 50 trees. We were estimating approximately 40 of those trees would be focused on Laredo Highway. Over the past 20 or 30 years, trees that were originally planted there have been lost. Either they've been hit by cars, or they weren't really suited for that particular area, the tree species, I mean. So fortunately, we have a guardrail along that stretch for the most part, and there's that's definitely a need to replace the trees, and it gives the community a very positive image. It's one of the major thoroughfares into the city, and I can tell you, speaking on behalf of the city council, that the council is very on board with pursuing this project. And the balance of the trees are for other city public facilities, parks, Mantle Park, Veterans Park. They at Mantle Park, the idea is that we're going to replace some trees that have been lost over the years, that have died out, and then at Veterans Park, the trees would complement current projects, notably a new basketball court. And then the animal control and the learning center and City Hall are the three other public facilities that we think would benefit by having new trees. So I should point out that part of our proposal includes a consultation with the Tree Foundation of Kern. They're going to help us pick the appropriate species for the locations to make sure they're sustainable. And then if we have the ability to install the trees with the city crews to ensure we get the maximum amount of trees. So that concludes what I have to share.
Thank you, Michael. That was really helpful and informative. I see another hand up, so I guess I'll check. Linda, do you want to still wait till after Steph finishes? Or if not, I'll see if Bianca wants to ask her question now.
I can wait until Steph finishes.
Okay. Bianca, do you have a comment or a question before we proceed?
We did an exercise in the past that where residents wanted to see the green barriers, and I think it's not being considered any of the locations that community have said. And it's a lot of money given to the city, and the city just decided randomly it seems like a good location in certain locations, but at the end of the day, they're not respecting what community were wanting when we did the exercise of the mapping. So I think we should go back to check on those locations. There's locations where residents would want that green barriers to protect with all these nut harvesters that are coming up. We did a tour in the summer with the Air District for locations and not being considered. It's alarming at some point, but at the same time, it does show that it's not being considered the places that residents have been requesting.
Steph, do you want to address the question? Okay.
Yeah, very quickly, and I see Linda adding the same thing. And so Bianca, I think maybe you might be referencing, and I actually do know, I reference back to the exercise and we have been referencing back to the exercise where CSC members provided feedback. Most of that feedback, I will say, is related to vegetative barriers, which is our measure to plant vegetative barriers such as oleanders to block pollution from sources of concern, such as like orchards or different facilities, or to plant them along schools to protect them, for example, from like a freeway. So this is we'll be discussing our vegetative barriers measures in a little bit here, but this is again our urban greening measure. And so for this measure, it's kind of planting trees to reduce pollutants, to provide shade to the community. And so that is a slightly different measure, but we will talk about vegetative barriers as well. Something that I do want to note is that I will say Lerdo Highway has been kind of time and time again in talking to the CSC. I know it's been a priority. I did see it noted in our social pinpoint exercise too, and both our vegetative barriers and our urban greening proposals, although it's a separate measure, this urban greening proposal does still provide greening at that space that on Lerdo Highway that I know was a high priority to folks. So maybe I'll just say that that it is a separate measure that we will be discussing in a minute here. But we'd hear you, Bianca, that CSC members provided feedback as well on the vegetative barriers measure, and we'll talk about that measure in a little bit here. And happy to pass to maybe Linda now. I'll just triple check, but I think that's the end of the next one is onto vegetative barriers. So happy to take at this point any questions.
I just wanted to make sure that, is it okay to talk?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'm ecstatic that we're finally going to get some trees here. This is great. I just really wanted to emphasize Veterans Park again. I know you said we're going to get mature trees, but I have heard that there was a foundation or someone that tried to put trees in Veterans Park and they were all stolen. So I just want to make sure that we've got good, hardy, hard to steal trees in Veterans. I think down that west side would just be amazing. And then also the Learning Center, what a great idea, because they've really developed that. So I'm really excited about this. I know Mantle Park that they have some mature trees, but I've heard some maybe have died. So anyways, I'm just really excited for this measure. I wanted to support it.
Thanks, Linda. We're really excited too. I do think it's been a challenge to kind of find someone that, it is not every organization can kind of take this on. You need the expertise and you need kind of the ability to maintain those. And so we're really excited the city of Shafter is interested in planting trees in the community. So thanks, Linda, and seeing Michelle, your thumbs up. Does anyone have any other questions about this urban greening measure?
Not seeing anything in the chat stuff.
Awesome. Well, we will look forward to working with the city of Shafter on this project. And of course, as kind of a commitment with all of our CERT measures, plan to bring updates to the CSC as planting is happening. I think these are pretty, places that community members see a lot. So I do think we'll be seeing trees kind of in the community pretty soon here. But we, of course, will update the CSC as these things are happening as well. Michael, just wanted to see if there's anything else you wanted to add before we kind of close out this measure.
Nothing for me. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Michael, for being here and for speaking about the project. With that, I will move us forward to our vegetative barriers measure. So as a reminder, our vegetative barriers measure, we have $1 million allocated in the CERP for this overall measure. We have had this request for proposal or RFP open for vegetative barriers. This is our second time that we opened it. We didn't have anyone apply the first time around, but in the second round, we did have it open. We did have Wonderful Orchards apply. They didn't apply for the whole amount of the funding. They applied for $196,000. And they're looking to cover approximately 4 acres of land in the community. And this was, I know, a recommendation of a lot of CSC members, but they're looking to plant 4,300 oleanders within these sites. And so the proposed locations that they are looking to plant in, again, I'm going to show a map too, so you all can see these things visually in the community. But there are 3 locations. And again, something to consider for these measures is something, in order for whatever implementer applies for this measure, they do need to have kind of right of way or else have access to the land so that they could go in and plant it and then also maintain it long term. So we ensure these things, they're not just planted and die. We want them to stay long term so that they're able to provide benefits to the community for many, many years to come. And so the 3 locations that that they have access to, that they can maintain, that they're looking to propose to plant these 4,300 oleanders are 7th Standard Road from Driver Street to Cherry Avenue, Burbank Street, Santa Fe Way to Golds Avenue, and then Lerdo Highway Street, Cherry Avenue to Friant Kern Canal. So I'm going to go ahead and show these a little more graphically and visually so you all can see kind of what's here. And so this is the site 7th Standard Road, Driver Street to Cherry Avenue. And I will say just about these 3 sites, they are sites that, again, Wonderful has access to, that it's adjacent to their ranches that they can maintain long-term to ensure that they're providing benefits to the community long-term. So this is one site that we have on 7th Standard Road. We also have a site on Burbank Street from Santa Fe Way to Golds Avenue. I'm just pausing here so folks can take a look at this map. So this is Burbank Street, this yellow line. And then this is Golds Avenue. And then we have Santa Fe Way right here, right before the cemetery. And then finally, and I know this was I think Lerdo Highway, again, like I mentioned earlier, has always been a high priority to the CSC and has kind of regularly been recommended by members. But this is Lerdo Highway from Cherry Avenue all the way down to the Friant Kern Canal. And similar to the last proposal, we do have Jed from Wonderful here that I know is excited to kind of speak on the project. So I do believe I saw him.
Yep, I'm here.
Oh, perfect. Hey, Jed, I just wanted to pass to you if you wanted to speak a little bit about the projects and the proposal and just the work that Wonderful wants to do in the community.
Yeah, of course. Thank you. Hi, everyone. This is Jed Wong, the Wonderful Company. I'm the Director of Real Estate. As Stephanie said, we're eager to get going on this project and excited and think it can, help deliver a benefit for the community. I think there was some discussion about where is the right locations. And so what we're proposing here is this actually ends up being about 5 miles of oleanders all told along Wonderful ranches. And, I think for us, it was actually quite a bit of planning and sort of listening. And I think we heard a variety of input, from the community and also, worked with the city and the Air District to understand where we could plant these. And it certainly turned out to be, more of a challenge than I appreciated going in. There are locations where you're dealing with utilities underground and power lines overhead, as well as needing to maintain a, significant right or a shoulder for cars to pull over safely. And so I think what we have here is, what could be this is a project that we're confident we can implement, and I think it should be a successful demonstration for the community. And hopefully, we can be a resource to others in the community as well, because there is, much more learning that we have now, even though we're not even into the implementation yet, just in the planning stage alone, that could hopefully, be a resource to other community members that are considering similar plantings. So that's where we are. And I think if we can get the contract done here shortly, we'd ideally like to plant this spring, would be a good time to plant for the benefit of the trees. And then we'd have a barrier in place ahead of the next harvest. So that's it for me.
Thank you so much, Jed, for coming to speak about the projects. At this time, I'll just triple check. I think that's the end of my slides here. Yep. At this point, I'm happy to take any questions that community members have about the vegetative barrier proposals.
This is Diana. There was another request for a hard copy of this too, so we've listed all of the hard copies that folks have requested in the action items.
We are happy to. And Bianca, I maybe just want to get to the point that you made just about not seeing, the proposals not reflecting all of the locations that CSC members want. I totally appreciate that. And we want to continue to work with you all to make sure that there are, as many barriers planted where community members want. This one specific proposal is just 196K. So we have about 800,000 left for us to continue to work with growers, continue to work with businesses, potentially any public agencies that are interested in participating, to continue to plant in other areas that members are interested in. But that doesn't mean that we can't, start moving forward with some of these proposals so that we can start seeing any vegetative barriers planted in the community, because so far, we only have had Wonderful step up to say that they can, work with us on this proposal. And so we can continue to work with Wonderful on these proposals, as well as still continue to work with you all to target other locations that we want to plant at, and perhaps use, Wonderful, like Jed mentioned, their experience going through this program to potentially work with other growers, to work with other businesses, to make sure that they are informed and know about this process. Because I know for Jed and just working with him and what he shared, that it's not an easy process to take a part of, and it's been a lot of learning for them. So for them to kind of be able to act as, I don't want to say guinea pig, but to act as, that person that is learning from this experience, can share their expertise with, other businesses, other growers that want to take advantage. I definitely think that's something that we can work with them on. Just wanting to see how folks are feeling about these proposals. Maybe just feel it out if we're getting like a thumbs up on it. If we have more questions on it. Seeing a thumbs up from Bianca. I do know also that Wonderful had worked with some community members. Seeing a thumbs up from Gustavo Aguirre Jr. And I know that, Wonderful did reach out and work with community members to kind of show these sites. So we appreciate them for kind of bridging that gap and working with our members on this proposal. Okay. Well, I'm not seeing any other questions, not seeing any other comments, and seeing some thumbs up about this proposal. We're really excited. And again, like I mentioned, we still have a lot of funds for this measure to continue to work with you all to tackle how we can get even more barriers planted in the community and get more businesses and other, agencies potentially involved in this measure. All right. So I'm going to continue to move us forward. And kind of the last bucket of CERT measures that we are looking to kind of see the progress on is our business and agricultural measures. So there's a good handful on here. I'll slowly break us down and walk us through some of these measures. We have several that are actually fully completed, in which we've spent pretty much the, all of the funds in the measure. And so that includes our alternatives to agricultural burning measure, also our low dust nut harvesters measure, and then also the measure to replace tractors. And so we're really excited because as I think most folks know, overall in terms of kind of emissions that are happening in the community, a lot of these emissions do come from different, agricultural activities that are happening, trucks that are moving through the community. And so these are definitely high priority measures that we want to continue to implement, because this is really how we're going to impact the emissions in the community. Some of the other measures that we still have some work to do on is I will provide a quick update on our heavy duty truck measure. And then also similar to that, and similar in the outreach for the measure that we'll do, is our yard truck and truck refrigeration units, or TRUs. And then also I'll provide an update on our public fleet vehicle measure as well. So I think a few meetings back, folks might remember we did talk about our heavy duty truck replacement measure and just kind of the challenges that are associated with implementing it and just the new technology and the difficulties in businesses, especially small local businesses, taking advantage of the measure. And so something that we think will be really important and just, I think, getting feedback across our committees just about wanting to make sure that we reach out to all the small businesses, single owner operators that are operating trucks within the boundary, is the district is conducting outreach to businesses and single owner operators within the boundary on this measure to see their availability to take advantage of the measure. And so there is through CARB, truckers, they register with CARB. And so we were able to get a list of all of the trucks that operate throughout our whole valley, including our AB617 communities. And something that we're looking to do probably in the next month here is to essentially reach out to all the trucks that are registered in the Shafter community. And we want to call all of these truck owners, businesses, to let them know about the measure, to kind of talk to them a little bit more on one about taking advantage, starting to think about electrifying their fleets. And that's something we'll plan to do kind of in this next month here. And we will provide an update on kind of that outreach campaign that we're doing to hopefully get more folks interested in participating in this program. And we'll of course continue to work with the CSC and with CARB on moving this measure forward. Another measure that you all saw here is the public fleet vehicle. And so again, this is kind of switching out kind of older fleet vehicles to newer, cleaner technology. And so the district is conducting outreach. We're reaching out to public agencies like the city of Shafter, for example. Also, this is something that nonprofits can take advantage of, different public agencies. And we're reaching out within the boundary to see who can take advantage of the program. And we'll again similarly provide updates to the CSC on program participation here. This is kind of in terms of, I think, timing a really important and crucial time to reach out to agencies, because I know it is time that folks and all agencies are trying to think about budgeting, and we want to make sure we don't miss that window of talking to agencies when they are thinking about budgeting for this next year. So we'll plan to kind of continue on all of these business and agricultural measures, but I'm happy to pause here and to take any questions that folks might have about any of those measures. And maybe I'm going to step back a little bit and see if any folks are interested in anything on this list. So heavy duty trucks, we have talked a good amount about. We are doing a big outreach campaign. And we'll hope to have more folks participating through this more in-depth outreach. And that's similar to that, your trucks and TRUs are something that, would be a similar kind of group of people that we'd conduct outreach to. And I do see a question from Gus Jr. Go right ahead.
Yeah, how's it going? Good evening, everyone. Gus here with the Central California Asthma Collaborative. And maybe this was stated already or will be stated in a later slide, but from all the incentives that have been invested thus far, like the alternatives to ag burning, low-dose snow harvesters, etc., has there been a total accumulation or has there been a formula model for how much emissions have been reduced overall?
Yeah, thanks, Gus Jr. for that question. We don't have kind of a graphic or a total in this presentation, but I think this is a great time because I want to just remind folks that it is a resource that's available to them. I do want to share our tracker with you all. In just one second here. I'm going to stop sharing my screen so I can pull up our tracker here. And basically this tracker, like it says, tracks literally every single one of our CERT measures, whether it's an incentive measure, whether it's an outreach measure, whether it's an enforcement measure, and then it tracks just their progress. And this is something that our entire district team works together to update on a monthly basis to you all. And so in that tracker, Gus Jr., to get to your point, that tracker does track kind of the emissions progress with those measures. So let me just share my screen. And so it does list out kind of all the measures. So all the top ones are related to our incentives measure, but as you go through this tracker, and sorry, I'm just showing the English one right now, but it's available fully in Spanish as well. But the top ones are related to our incentive measures. And then as you go down, there's reports on our enforcement measures, our outreach measures, ones that are related to partnerships and land use. And so our whole host of our CERT measures, we provide monthly updates on. And to get to your point, as you scroll through, you'll see kind of a general status update, kind of what's the most recent thing that's happened with the measure, what the original CERT commitment was in terms of like units or potential or funding, and what's been achieved to date. And then in the rest of the columns, you'll see kind of the emissions that are associated with that measure. And so for our top 3 measures here, these are agricultural measures that we've completed. You can see the emissions that have been reduced through these measures. And so these are the ones that are that have been achieved in the community. So for example, with alternatives to ag burn, we reduced almost just like 0.1 off, almost 100 tons, total tons of NOx through the community, and 183 tons of PM 2.5. But to your point, if it's, thanks, Gus Jr. If you all are interested in potentially seeing this a little more graphically, we can look to bring that to an upcoming meeting.
Yeah, thank you. And then just the last part of the question for the achieved reduction, are these modeled? Are these like based on the equipment, the emissions that the equipment was replaced, or is it based on like air monitoring information from before the incentive was spent and after?
Yeah, so these emissions that we have are related to kind of understanding the use in the community. So we're able to know kind of like model like based on the use of like X amount of equipment, like say a tractor. We can model kind of estimated based on like the use, the hours that it's being used, like what model year and all of that, the emissions that are being reduced in the community. It's not like air monitoring. We saw, I'm not sure exactly how that would work, but it's not that we would, there's air monitor attached to an equipment and we can see that that equipment has changed.
Thank you.
Does that answer your question? Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for your question. And
oh, yep, were we headed the same way? Yeah, I was also looking at the chat. Thanks, Steph. Yeah, so we had a question from Linda. Can we still move any funds to these programs that have maxed out? It looks like there were very successful ones and what folks needed, like low dust harvester.
Yes, this is Stephanie. Thanks, Linda. And it's certainly something that we can discuss. I know that we've kind of provided updates. There is one particular measure that I know we have been looking to move forward that we haven't had that much success in moving forward, just knowing having worked with the businesses that would potentially take advantage of. And that is our locomotives measure. And that's actually where, if folks remember, where we ended up reallocating funds for our vegetative barrier measure from, because there was support from community members to make that switch. So if folks are interested, it's certainly something that we can work with you all. If you all are thinking or interested in moving funds to potentially another measure like Linda is mentioning, like low dust nut harvesters.
Sorry.
Go
I
ahead.
had to raise my hand. How soon do we need to do that? Because like I said, we just came out of harvest. So if we were going to give more to, folks for the low dust nut harvesters, I don't know how long it takes to go through the grant process and order them so that they would have them for next year so that we don't have as much dust in the air. How soon would the committee need to make a decision on that?
I know that we have Ryan Damanowski here, who is our expert on agricultural programs. Can you give us a little information of like generally if someone were to apply, what time it takes to go through the process?
Yeah, so Linda, to kind of answer your question, the program that we have the specific program for the community of Shafter, but it's actually a larger program that's district wide. And so this program, the Low Dust Harvester program, it's open to anyone throughout the entire district. But again, this specific money has been allocated to Shafter. So I say all that because even though we've allocated the $5 million that was specifically set aside for Shafter community, the program's still open and it's open to anyone. And so growers in the Shafter community can still apply and still receive funding. It's just we've already spent the specific amount that we've set aside for the program. But again, we have a much larger program throughout the district, and we can still fund projects through that. And so with that background, it usually takes probably anywhere from 8 to 10 months if someone were to apply today through that low dust harvester program. Granted, I think it'll be much quicker because it used to be a lot longer, but we've received a lot of additional funding again for our district-wide program, kind of the larger picture one. We received a lot more funding for it, so things are going a lot faster. So realistically, if someone applies today, they should be able to get a new harvester for next year's harvest season. So if you know anyone, send them our way, and we'd be more than happy to get them going. And like I said, realistically, about right now, if they were to apply, they'd be pretty close to being able to receive a new harvester for next year's harvest. But it still will take some time. So by no means is that a guarantee. Seeing that we're already in November, and I know a lot of growers have to place orders usually in springtime for new equipment. So if we're looking short term, by next harvest, it'd be close, but longer term, within the next year, easily, if someone were to apply today, they would be able to get a new harvester. So,
is there extra incentive money for shafter with?
Yes,
with
and
that
that is the difference,
Okay.
Linda.
Yeah.
No, yeah. Thank you for bringing that up, because I believe for shafter we were funding it at a 75% of the total cost of the equipment, and so the standard district-wide program I keep referencing, that's at 50%. So it is a lower percentage. So in terms of moving funding in the community of shafter to this, yeah, I mean, it would be beneficial because again, we do pay it at a higher rate, or we did, I guess, when we had the funding. So yeah, and Stephanie, that would be something. I don't know off the top of my head how that works in terms of moving funding for this. So I don't know if you
I'm
are
happy
aware,
to.
but
Yeah, I'm happy to hop in.
And
And
oh, sorry. I also just want to kind of make note that, interest rates have gone up a lot, and I don't know of anyone that could just shell out a ton of money. So if there is a way to help get these to some of the farmers so we don't have as much dust, it would just be amazing if we could all come together and kind of do that, because it is just, there's a lot of dust. And I think we all get sinus infections. So just hoping that since there is an extra, what did you say, almost 20,000, I think that would be a good incentive just with the interest rates going up. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. And just like Ryan is saying, for this program, we do, and for all of our measures, there are some that are district, kind of ones that we run as a district, but generally overall, every single one of those measures has an enhancement kind of above and beyond what we are doing. And so for the shafter community, folks that want to take advantage of the program within our shafter community do receive that increased incentive amount to take advantage of the program. And I just want to maybe address Bianca's question about reductions that are in the community. So the estimated reductions are 343 NOx tons, and then also 137.6 PM2.5 tons reduced in the community. And we have, and I'll have to triple check my numbers, but I believe, and Ryan, I don't know that you would know this off the top of your head, but I do believe we have, oh, actually I can check our tracker. We have 25 low dust nut harvesters out in the community right now. And so if folks are interested in potentially pursuing and getting more of these nut harvesters in the community, we can definitely plan to talk to the CSC potentially about reallocating funds from a measure that potentially we're not seeing as much movement in.
Yeah, and Stephanie, I think, I don't know off the top of my head, but I'm pretty sure we funded even a few more than that, just looking at our bigger program. Because I believe those 25 we replaced quite a while ago. And so since then, people that have gone through the standard program at the 50% rate. I know we've still done a handful in shafter community just through that program as well. So there's more than just the 25 as well.
Thanks, Ryan. And Bianca, you asked, are the nut harvesters inside the 7 mile radius? And so yes, the answer is all the equipment, the units, whatever we're replacing and looking to provide new equipment to, it's within our 7 mile radius.
Thanks, Steph. And just wanting to lift up Linda's comments in the chat. This is Jem speaking, by the way. Lifting up Linda's comment in the chat, I think it'd help with some of the agriculture barriers that we didn't get on certain roads. Pointing out that Highway 43 gets bad. So appreciating that. Wonderful. We'll be putting them on Lerdo, but were there other areas addressed as well? A couple of questions.
Yeah, maybe just responding. I think Linda is mentioning that she feels that additional nut harvesters would maybe address the fact that we, we don't currently have barriers in along certain roads, such as Highway 43. And then just recognizing, and I think, yeah, we as a district recognize too, of course, with this one project that Wonderful is doing, we're not addressing all of the vegetative barriers that folks want to see in the community. And so we definitely still want to work with folks on seeing them in other locations that we've already kind of worked on. I know the CSC has when we went through an exercise, we have a social pinpoint.
Bianca has a question in the chat on, is that area 43 or is it outside the area or within the radius?
I was just wondering if it's inside the area or outside of the radius. I think it's not, but would it fall into the air district project, the 50% given out to the agriculture? Have they done any outreach to those growers that are affecting the area?
And sorry, Bianca, I'm just wanting to check. I'm not sure what you mean about is it out? So I'm not sure what thing you're referencing is outside. Are you talking about the low dust nut harvesters?
Yes.
Yeah, so all of those are within our radius. And so far,
Stephanie, maybe I can help since I brought it up. Bianca, I think I understand what you are referencing. And yes, there's a part at Los Angeles when you head south on 43 that has trees. There's been a lot of dust in there, which would be north of the Colony and north of Cherokee Strip. Also south of Cherokee Strip, there's areas, and then right before the school at RBG, it can get really bad too. I think that the school got looped into the radius. Airborne can correct me. And then I was also thinking maybe if there's places up by Maple, because that's another school up there. It's just there's so much dust because we don't have the water and we can't flood irrigate anymore. We have to do the drip. So I was just hoping that we could get some more of these low dust nut harvesters in these areas that I feel like we all marked out for the ag barriers. Since we can't really make a farmer or anyone else put in the ag barriers, maybe this is another solution that they'd be willing to do.
Gotcha. Thank you for clarifying, Linda. Yeah, we can definitely, if it's of interest and folks are like on the CSC are interested in potentially supporting or discussing that low dust nut harvester measure and potentially about moving funds to support more low dust nut harvesters. That's something we can definitely work with the CSC and discuss. And then I'm also just hearing maybe just support for reaching out to doing more outreach to those growers that potentially there's dust coming off of their fields, to see if they're interested in participating in the vegetative barrier program and ensuring that they're aware of our low dust nut harvester program, to just doing outreach related to things that they could take advantage of to reduce dust in the community.
Stephanie, don't forget that there's custom farming too. So it might not be the person that actually owns the trees, but there's companies that come in and do the harvesting for them. Gotcha. I have no idea how to get a hold of those people. Maybe the Farm Bureau, or maybe when you contact the owners, they could get you in touch with those, because I feel like there is that aspect too that we need to reach out to. Maybe those people would be willing to get some low dust nut harvesters.
Yeah. Thank you for that suggestion. And I do know that our outreach team has worked with the Farm Bureau, but can continue to maybe do some more targeted outreach about ways to reduce dust in the community and potentially taking advantage of the vegetative barrier program that we have. Thanks, Linda. And then also thanks, Bianca. Bianca, I hope that answered your question, but feel free if you didn't to unmute or type in the chat if you still have a question. With that, I have, and thanks, Bianca. I see your comment. The Ag Commissioner has information on growers. Appreciate it. I have one last slide to kind of wrap up, but I honestly just kind of also, I've heard some really great things tonight, and I just want to continue to open it up, especially to folks that haven't had a chance to, to share any feedback, just about any feedback that they've heard about the measures that they have, and also to help us support, I think, prioritizing measures for the upcoming year. Obviously, we will continue to kind of push forward all of our CERT measures, but if there are, measures of certain interest and priority, I know vegetative barriers, urban greening, paving, bike paths, those are all things that we've heard tonight. But we definitely want to hear from you all of upcoming priorities that you all have as we're thinking about starting up meetings again in the next year. So I'm going to share my screen, wrap us up, and then just happy to take any general feedback about CERP implementation. So a couple of things that the district kind of wants to follow up on in support of some of the measures and some of the CERT measures that we've talked about tonight is for our passenger vehicle repair and replacement programs. We want to definitely continue to work with you all to do outreach on these measures. And so we are working on drafting outreach materials to let community members know and to get them to take advantage of the programs. And so we'll plan on sharing draft outreach materials on these programs for feedback, for discussion. And then also, if folks are interested, I know I heard some interest from Linda tonight, and any other members that could be interested, let us know. Discussions regarding additional in-person events for our lawnmower exchange program. If folks are interested in potentially holding another mower exchange event like we did back in 2 Novembers ago, we can look to reallocate more funds so we can support another in-person event. And then also we talked a little bit about it as well, but if you all, for air purifier in-person distribution, as you all kind of learn of events in the community or know of any events that are going on, especially as we're thinking about the holiday season. I know in some of the other communities, we're looking at potentially like a turkey giveaway or food distributions that are happening kind of close to the holidays. So as you all kind of hear about events, please let us know, and we can look to potentially coordinate to distribute air purifiers in the community. And then also, I know that there are a couple of programs that maybe folks, I know that maybe I didn't know too much about them before I worked at the Air District, but we definitely want to also invite agency partners and organizations to provide residents more information, for example, on our Dial-A-Ride program and then car share program as well. So those are some of the things we want to commit to you all as we're thinking about the next year. Overall, these are just a couple of quick examples. I know just overall, we're really eager to continue implementing a lot of these measures in the community, just in kind of pairing with all the great just progress that we've had. I just want to take a moment also just to thank the CSC. I think you all, I see so many members that have been with this committee kind of from the start that have really, been crucial and essential to providing feedback, to giving us guidance, direction, recommendations to move forward these CERT measures. And so really all of this cumulative progress that we've seen tonight is really just a reflection of the work that you all are doing as community members, as you all are doing, as you being advocates in your community for this program. So just wanted to take a moment to thank you all, and thank you for your commitment to improving air quality in the Shafter community. And with that, I'm happy to maybe close off this presentation. And I know we have maybe just a quick standing updates to close us off, but I do think we have a few minutes to continue to hear feedback, hear CSC priorities for the upcoming year. And so with that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and happy to hear from any CSC member.
Maybe while folks think about any questions or comments you may have, just going to lift up Linda's suggestion, I think, for the lawnmowers. 2 hardware stores, but one by Apple on Main Highway, and then suggesting that schools might be a good target for air filters as well.
And that's maybe, Jem, again, I'll quickly respond as other folks are maybe thinking of their comments. Schools are definitely something we want to target as well, Linda. We are I know that in our Stockton community, there's a food distribution that goes on through the school district that we're working with the school district to see if we can attend that. But I think schools are definitely something that is of interest to us as well. And so we have contacts with our chapter schools, but if you all know of anyone that we could work with to potentially get into like some kind of distribution event or some kind of parent, event that's going on at the school, we're more than happy to look into it to see if it's something we can provide filters at.
Awesome. Thank you, Steph. We'd love to hear from the CSC folks. Any thoughts, any reactions you have of the CERT measures that Stephanie just went over? I know is a lot, but does it feel aligned with what you were all hoping for as we reflect on the year? Any particular measures of interest that you want to lift up or prioritize, or maybe have questions or concerns about? This is your floor, this is your meeting, so we'd love to hear from you. And Steph, since this is our last meeting, I'm sure there's opportunities for them to provide input through the end of the year as they sit on this.
Thank you, Jen, for mentioning that. While we won't have the meeting, we will still plan to provide like a standing updates follow-up email in December. And we are still working. Most of our team, I know that a lot of our team will be still working through, November, December, still working on moving forward these CERT measures. I think as a lot of folks know, Jessica Olson, she'll be back too, and we'll be excited to have her kind of rejoin the group. And so we are still, while we might not have a meeting, we are also, our whole team is working on CERT implementation this whole time, and we'll be sure to update the CSC and provide kind of an email update in December to close off the year.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Steph, for that insightful, informative presentation. And thanks, folks, for your great engagement. Really good questions and suggestions. Our team has noted a lot of the action items that came of that, so we can review them toward the end. I'm not seeing any more comments, questions, or hands. So I guess I'll pivot us to our last major item, which is standing updates. But again, if something comes up, feel free to just raise your hand or drop it in the chat. We do only have a couple standing updates for tonight. And just as a reminder, these updates are, to keep the CSC abreast of all the other activities going on. There's a lot to track. But tonight we'll be hearing from Carb, I believe. So I'll hand it off to Carb for any standing updates for the community.
Jem, this is Stephanie. I'm looking through the room. I see CARB individuals, but not our CARB liaison, Cameron. And so I do know that I think they are taking a little pause on attending all of their meetings, and they're still available, but I do think that's probably why they're not here tonight. But we will follow up with them via email to provide you all any CARB updates that they might have.
Sounds good. Thanks, Steph. And I believe the only other update that we have planned for is the Air District.
Thanks, Jem. And I think we've covered all of our Air District updates in our very long presentation.
Awesome. All right. So I guess that's all for what we had in the agenda. But are there any other agencies that want to take the time to provide any updates for the community? Anything helpful for us to be tracking, activities or events that might be good for the community to know about? All right. Not seeing any hands. Okay, so I'll pivot us to our last agenda item, which is just to review the action items, and then we'll let you all go. And just as a reminder, as Steph mentioned, you'll continue to receive these updates throughout the end of the year outside of our CSC meetings. So I will now share my action items tracker just to make sure we captured what folks requested, mostly from the Air District tonight. This is a chance for you all to kind of review ensure we captured it accurately, and if there are any clarifying questions or suggestions, we can edit them as we go. So our first action item is, again, to send hard copies of the materials that were covered today. So the Air District will be doing that after tonight's meeting. If there are any, I guess, topics or, yeah, any materials missing here, please feel free to let us know and we'll add it to the list. Otherwise, the next agenda item is to share the locations of the EV chargers. And these, again, as a reminder, these are all publicly accessible. The next one is to bring the CSC updates on Air District meetings with the City of Shafter, and we'll update the CSC if there's any opportunity for them to join any of these meetings. The next action item is for the Air District to bring updates to the CSC as urban greening planting is happening. I believe this will be an ongoing standing agenda item or updates, but just noting it here. Then there's plans for the Air District to discuss with the CSC about moving funds to low dust not harvester measures from other measures that are not getting as many traction. And I think in general, a more general conversation about the funds and how they want to prioritize the measures. Then we have the Air District will reach out to harvester companies, the Farm Bureau, and the Ag Commissioner about opportunities regarding the low dust nut harvester and vegetative barriers program. Area District will provide email updates for December. And then lastly, if there are any updates from CARB, the Area District will pass that along as well. Are there any questions, clarification, or suggestions with any of the items we've reviewed? All right. And then I'll just switch over to the last thing. Just as a reminder for folks, usually we have our agenda setting meeting on Mondays, but for this month, we'll have it this coming Thursday. It'll be at 3 p.m., so a bit earlier in the time and in the time of day and in the week. And then since you all know that today is our last CSC meeting of the year, the next one will be on Monday, January 8th at 5 p.m. Still on Zoom.
And that actually should be January 8th, 2024.
Oh,
we are.
Good catch. We're not going back in time. Good catch. Sorry, yes, that will be January 2024, January 8th.
Unless somebody has a time machine, and then that would be cool.
Then we can redo the CERT measures all over again. All right. Awesome. I think that brings us to the end of everything we had to share for you all, but we would like to open it up for any public comments or any questions. Here, the floor is yours, community. Or if there are any announcements that you'd like to make to your fellow colleagues, please feel free to use the space. Okay. Welcome. Also, any closing remarks? You all have done such a wonderful job this year, as Steph really highlighted with the measures that have been, yeah, remarkable progress. So I guess I'll welcome any closing remarks. And if not, I'll pass it off to Steph to close us off. I guess before that, I see a comment from Bianca. We should reconsider on giving extra to the growers for nut harvesters. There's been a lot allocated to growers and no changes have happened in the area.
Thanks, Bianca. I definitely think we can plan to bring back a couple of these things to our agenda setting meeting to see if folks want to see it at the January meeting. That sounds good. I know we've kind of heard both sides of it now, so happy to see what folks are interested in at the agenda setting to bring back for January's meeting. Thanks, Bianca, for your comment. And I wanted to thank you all for kind of the wonderful work that we've all been endeavoring on this past year. I know we've had challenging conversations. We've had a lot of really great progress. We've had lots of in-person meetings and lots of evening meetings in which we've been, you all have been sharing your expertise with us to continue to implement clean air strategies in the community. I think there's been a lot of progress made, but of course we want to still continue on and push forward a lot of these CERT measures as we're moving into next year. And so we just continue to thank you all for working with us, and looking forward to an exciting year next year to continue CERP implementation.
Awesome. Thank you, Steph. Thank you all. There are any other comments or questions. We will give you 6 minutes back to your evening. All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. Have a happy